I am over the moon today to share with you our guest. Angharad Sage is your galactic guide in human form. She has precipitated a massively successful online spiritual mentoring and digital product business founded upon deep intimacy, your soul's unique expression, and breaking the motherfucking rules. Her favorite place to get to know each other and to channel free content is Instagram, and her handle is at Angharad Sage. Angharad, thank you so much for being on the show today.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you for the glorious intro. I cannot wait for our conversation.
I literally have goosebumps. And I think the first, where I want to start is to introduce you to everyone listening as my mentor. We have now walked 2022 together for almost 6 months. We speak every single week. You literally have all the ins and outs of not only what's happening in the Hotel Florist world, but personally and writing a book and inner child work and the whole shebang. Help our listener understand, in your perspective, how valuable private mentorship really is.
Great question. Oh my goodness. So I can speak to my experience the most powerfully, right? So my biggest transformation came in my life when I found the personal development world and found the online coaching world, and then eventually hired a personal coach. That was the very first, my introduction, I guess, to hiring a private mentor, or as a coach back then, but still it evolved into mentorship. And I remember, actually, the story is just flying in, so it's amazing. Before I hired my first mentor, I remember messaging her and saying, or coach, whatever, same thing, whatever. I remember messaging her and saying, I'm afraid if I hire you, then I won't be doing it myself.
I love this. We have to talk about this.
I don't think I've ever talked about this online, actually. So this is beautiful. Epic wisdom. Thank you, Projector Vibes. Okay. So I messaged her that, and I went down a big journey. And so, you know, what I realized on the journey of being, I ended up hiring her like that day, but I needed to voice out my fear, right? And what I learned is that fear that was holding me back was just my inadequacy that I felt within myself, because I had been a flake for so long. When I entered the coaching industry, one of the driving reasons why I personally wanted to hire a private coach or a private mentor was accountability for me. Not that they were going to message me saying, have you done this? It wasn't about any of that. It was nothing to do with what they were going to do. It was about my investment in myself to make myself show up in my best version of myself. And over time, that's grown and evolved and changed into, you know, mentorship and relationships, and the type of relationship that we have, like the depth and the intimacy and the seeing so many versions and walking alongside someone like that has become my most favorite thing in life, but both ways, being mentored and coached and being able to provide that for other people as well. So I fell in love with that, and I will never go back. Like, I head over heels, fell in fucking love.
Now we're going to get into your background and kind of, you know, where were you before you created this insane multi-million-dollar online coaching business? But before we do that, I want to go back to something you said where you're like, I feel like I needed to do it myself, because we actually just talked about this recently, where I didn't even think about hiring a coach until 2 years ago, because I felt like if I had to hire a coach, it meant that I didn't know how to do it. And if I didn't know how to do it, then it shouldn't be done. Like, I wasn't the one to do it. I want to do a perspective shift here and introduce our listener to a new paradigm. And I feel like you're the perfect person to talk about this.
Okay. Yes. So one of the things that comes up within me, like when I hear you say that, and when I look back at my other versions of me, is it ran away. Hold on. It'll come back.
It's important. It just had to do a loop around the track.
It has to do a loop, has to be more marinated. Time. I don't know. What was the key word you said? You said a key word. You said,
I had to do it myself. Like, I always felt that if I was going to be an entrepreneur and I struggled being an entrepreneur, it meant that I wasn't meant to do it. Like, I had to just do everything myself in order to be validated, or for it to be, for me to be legit.
Thank you. This is about healing. we have to see where we first learned this, or where this first came up for us, or even how we saw this modeled for us from our parents or our parent figures or our uncles, or even successful people in our lives that one of the things that I was told growing up is that rich people or people who made it in business stood on other people to get there. And so there's all of this quantum entanglement we have around, and for me personally, my mother was I was raised by a solo mother. My father passed away when I was very young. She was very much, I'm going to do this by myself, like in a very masculine, cannot accept help, very sovereign, very self-led, but to the point where she would never accept help. And so that was the barrier that I found within myself when I went to go hire a mentor, because it just reminded me of these younger times and myself, not only when I saw that modeled, but also I've just had a huge initiation with my daughter the last 24 hours with some things she's going through. And this is very much tied into this around, our parenting. So what we've received as a child in regards to, if we saw them modeling that they need to do it for themselves, we thought that ourselves then too. We can't ask for help. That would, for me, what that looked like was I would be putting other people out by asking for help, and so it became this very much, I have to do this by myself. But I found so much joy in partnership and union with friends first, right? Friends and partners and people that you really get along with. And then in the coaching industry and just being able to walk side by side. What I realized one day, I woke up and just the day that I was messaging that first ever coach, and I was like, she's not going to post stuff on social media for me. She's not going to be creating my website for me. She's not going to be sitting my laughing, being like, bitch, this isn't you've got to get up at 7 a.m. to do your journaling. It's not a drill sergeant. It's not freaking army camp, like no one else was ever going to do this for you. And so my big journey in this realm has been, it has to be you. It's always been you. It's always been you. The most quantum, esoteric ideas, it all comes back to us. It always loops back around to us.
I love that. And I can say that of all the clients that I work with, the ones that definitely jump into that one-on-one mentorship, they grow so much faster. They're so much deeper. They see versions of them that they've never even imagined. And sometimes it'll slip out like, I couldn't have done this without you, and I'm like, I didn't do any of this. Like you said, you showed up, you set your alarm, you walked in, you negotiated your contract, you opened your shop, like you sold your flower, like you did all of that. I just showed you what was possible, like an alternative to what you decided previously was true for you.
Mm-hmm. I remember saying that to my first coach when I stopped working with her after over 12 months. I worked with her privately. And when I finished, I said, thank you so much. I couldn't have done this without you. And she's like, Angharad, you definitely would have. And that was always a weird, and still to this day, I feel the conundrum, because it's like, yeah, she didn't get up and do it at 7 a.m. for me. But I still, as the client, still feel like if I didn't have that relationship with her and that embedding in those codes, it's not even just codes, it's also the support, someone to hold me to my vision energetically. She wasn't a strategy person. She never did that for me, but someone to hold me and my highest version of myself energetically every single day, that was priceless. And that's the part where I feel like I couldn't have done it without the mentors. Of course, I still did the things and did the doing and all the energies and everything, but it's this two truth thing, like both are true. I think I couldn't have done it without them. And of course I could have at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I think it just takes longer. I know for me personally, when I decided to dive into one-on-one mentorship, I've never had an issue with accountability and I've never really had an issue with initiative, but it's that period of wobbles where it's like you start self-doubting yourself. There's a fear, there's a curveball you don't see coming. And I knew myself in my past trauma response was to just bury it, was to just get over it, was to just not feel it. And then after a number of years of doing that, seeing it kind of explode in your face, it was not a vibe. So I was like, I want to work with someone that I know has walked a similar path as me, that I know has dealt with similar traumatic events in her life, and she's overcome it, and she's developed emotional intelligence, and she's been able to regulate her nervous system so that as and when those things happen in my life, because they're going to happen, I want to be able to have someone, even if it feels wildly uncomfortable, but it's like, this is what happened. I'm freaking out. I feel stressed. I feel like a failure. Just to be able to acknowledge that for myself first, but in a safe space where someone can say, you know what, I got you. And here's how we're going to move from this, versus staying in like a loop, a shame loop, a self-judgment loop, which I would have done in the past.
And then for me, that would lead to procrastination.
Yes.
And then we don't get to where we go. So it absolutely does change our timelines because of that deep support that we have as a human being. And, you know, not everyone, this is not for everyone. This is not why they seek out mentorship or coaching. Some people want the strategy, or, you know, there's lots of different reasons why, but specifically in regards to like the trauma and the emotional intelligence and because what we know from running businesses, huge businesses, is that everything impacts your business.
Yep.
Our business is an extension of us. It's not all of us, but it's an extension of us. So it's like, I once heard a saying that when the tide comes into the harbor, all of the ships rise. So as we heal, I have goosebumps, as we heal our inner child, or as we develop more emotional intelligence and heal those versions of us that were trapped at the younger visions, whatever it is, as we go through this depth, all of the ships rise. And because we're so passionate about our businesses and we put so much into it, there is an overflow. Our business is a reflection of us, but it's not all of us. So all of the ships rise through this deep inner work and support and nourishment, and just this type of container. Like that is what I fell in love with. And that is a joy. It's an absolute joy.
I love that. And it's so true, because now I look back on, you know, I'm relatively new in this industry. I've made my first program in 2020, and I go back and I look at all the different things that I've recorded throughout the years, and there are just so many different versions of me, but all those versions were required. I misspoke. 2019 was the first one. So I even say, like, you go back into Petals to Profit to this day, it's about how to build a floral design business, how to have a multiple six-figure floral design business working 1 to 2 days a week. It's like, who I am today is completely different than who I was in 2019, but it doesn't mean that those versions need to be thrown away. And I think that's also so incredibly important when it comes to mentorship, is being reminded of honoring who you once were, honoring what you're going through right now and who you are in this present moment, and honoring and accessing your higher self, the version of you that you're stepping into.
All of those layers. Yes, you have mastered them. I'm celebrating.
Tiramisu.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that a lot of us search for, but we don't know we're searching for that. Like, we're searching for that mastery, but we have no idea until, you know, you guys listening right now probably like, what? I didn't even, until you hear the words and it lands in you, you're like, wow, that is a part of what I've been searching for my whole life. So I celebrate you and the layers and your growth. And it's incredible to witness. I love it so much.
I recently had someone's husband email through the website. So I've never spoken to this person. He emails, the team forwards it to me, and it's the most beautiful email, but it's essentially thanking me for changing his life through his wife's life. And he's like, words cannot describe the impact you've had on my life, seeing my wife stepping into a more confident version of herself, more professional. So like you said, like, it impacts us. Like, when the tide comes in, we all rise. And I know there's a lot of words out there that might confuse people, like, you know, quantum leaps and, you know, downloads and collapsing time. And people are like, I'm just trying to like figure out how to sell this arrangement, like make it to next week. And it's like, this is what we mean by it. And this is what I truly believe, and why I've fallen in love with the coaching industry, is like, you really make a difference. You make a difference not only in your client's life, but in everyone that she touches as well.
That ripple effect, the flow on. Like, I met a woman at a baby shower a few years ago, and we talked for like 5 minutes. That's it. And I don't remember what we talked about. Like, I don't know, we just talked. And this is a couple of years ago. And she messaged me about it a year later saying, I changed my whole life. My partner and I left our jobs, moved to the other side of the country. Like, so much has changed in a year from that one conversation I had with you, you know? And so one of the biggest things that we do is we often doubt our impact, you know, like when it comes to service-based businesses, any type of business actually, but especially service-based businesses. I was talking the other day, we walked into a pharmacy, a security guard at the pharmacy. I don't really know why. It's a random thing to happen in New Zealand, but there was a security guard there and she was amazing. She was watching the kids were at the checkout and Joel gave Clara a hug for some, I don't know, he was just snuggling her. And she came to us and she's like, you guys are amazing. You guys have so much love. And then we walked out and we were smiling. And then the people walking towards us were then smile. It was an old couple and they were like, had a huge smile because I saw our laughter. It was just like a movie scene picturesque. And it's like, it's contagious. Joy is contagious. So inside your business, like, you know, I feel so much like from flowers. I'm like a little bit of a psycho for those of you who don't know. Like flowers are my love language, fucking love language. Okay. Roses, they're my love language. But anyway, and you know, when I feel it, like I feel the people that have touched the bouquet, I feel the vibration, I feel their passion and their artistry. You know, you guys are impacting so many people's lives, and often we don't even realize it until we have that message or until you hear something like this about the ripple effect is phenomenal and beautiful, and once again, such a joy.
Such a joy. And, you know, I love that we're talking about this and we're showing like the beautiful impacts of investing in yourself and in mentorship and in just like support in general, especially as an entrepreneur. But the one thing that I want to insert here, the caveat I want to insert is that it wasn't always like this. Like this was not your journey. Like you and your husband didn't have this really beautiful, like sharing smiles with everyone every day vibe. Like I definitely wasn't feeling completely satisfied in my life. Talk to me a little bit about what was life like as Angharad as the wedding cake baker? What was it like for Angharad as a farmer? Like what was it like pre-personal development, pre-being in the multi-million-dollar online coaching space that you're in now?
A shit storm. A 2-word sum up. Yeah. So I started wedding cake making because I had postpartum depression. I admitted to myself I had postpartum depression. Really, I'd had depression for like 20 years, but I couldn't handle admitting that to myself. Postpartum depression after my second child was what I allowed myself to admit, which was still a huge thing for me. And so it was my creative outlet. We had been self-employed for 7 years roughly at that point. We've always been entrepreneurs since we're 21. We started our first business, and it's started agricultural contracting and then into farming, and then I did wedding cake making, and then I did a food blog, and then shifted into coaching and food blog. Well, podcast first, because I was scared of being announcing I was going to be a coach, and then coaching, and then mentoring, and that's the second half of the journey where we are now. But those stages were filled with the most duality I could never explain. Like those of us who have been through deep trauma, who have had, depression, who have had anxiety, who have had a myriad of things, not just those things, but that's my personal experience. It was, I was extremely suicidal for nearly 20 years of my life. Like it was a lot. There was a lot a lot of burdens that I held, a lot of things that I didn't know how to get rid of. Like I seemed to absorb everybody else's everything, and held a lot for my family, being the eldest of 5 kids when my father passed away when I was 7. And I got into a religious cult. Like there was a lot that happened in those 20 years. So, when I did find a podcast, that was the first thing I found in like a personal, in the coaching industry, I guess, and heard someone speak about a coach, I was like, I thought coaches only teach like soccer and rugby and football. I didn't know there was another type of coach. And the podcast community was what started my ability for me to be able to look inward and see myself and see my hurts and see my pain. And it was a really messy journey. Like the way I describe it is, there was a moment where it was like a plastic water bottle you squeeze and the water comes out. And it was like the moment of no return. It was my lowest of lows. And there was all the duality, all the pain, all the trauma, everything I'd been through squeezed me to be where I am now. But I didn't know it at the time, of course. It just felt horrific.
Way to not sugarcoat it. Horrific. I don't think you can get more descriptive than that. And I just want to say thank you so much for your honesty and just for your transparency, because I know so many of us, as business owners, we show up in our skill set, we show up in our trade, we show up for our clients. And I used to say I built really beautiful billboards and then I ran and hid behind them. And it wasn't until 2020 when they all got blown down. And I was like, I don't even know who I am. And so I wanted to give this contrast, because even though we're both passionate about helping people and we're both extremely passionate about mentorship and we've invested in ourselves, and I've invested in you as my mentor, I wanted to show that there was a flip side to this. There was something that drove us to this point. And I feel like I'm going to share this story. It's a little bit, I don't think I've ever really shared this too publicly. So it wasn't that long ago. I want to say it was about a year ago. And I had been following Angharad for a few months. And this is also for anyone listening, when you get really upset when people don't buy your things, when a client doesn't buy or sign you, just remember they don't buy yet, but there's people watching all the time. And so there's a bit of context behind this story, but essentially I was in and out of Angharad's world. She would trigger me. I would unfollow. I would go back and watch. She would say something. I'd be like, whatever. I don't agree with this, or there's no way, or just, we get triggered by people we're meant to work with. I firmly believe, because there's something about them that's activating us. And I'll never forget, my husband and I are in the car. We're driving to his parents' house. We're in Germany. And I see you celebrate. You just celebrated $1 million. This was in 2021. You just celebrated $1 million. And this was like, less than 2 months later was the second million.
Yeah. September, end of September, I think, was the first million. The second million was December. I think it was 10 weeks actually between the first and second. Yeah.
Made zero sense. And I want to talk about this, but I want to share this story with you, and I want to share it with you this way, because I want you to be seen, because it's like, looking back now, I love this version of me. But I saw this celebration. You had your crown on. You're like, yay, another $1 million. And I was like, what the actual fuck is this? Like, I was so angry, but not angry at you, not jealous of you, but angry of like, why am I still in this box? Even though every 2 seconds I'm like scratching the veil, as Melanie would say, and like looking out into like a whole new world, and I'm like, but I'm still in my fucking box. And I was hysterical. I was crying. Martin had to pull over on the side of the road and like console me, but he didn't really know what he was consoling me for. He was like, are you mad that she made more money? I'm like, you just don't understand. Like, she's like $2 million. I mean, I'm sure someone listening to this right now is like, what are you actually talking about? But what I want to say is that when we see people that have invested in themselves, they walk with the fear, they continue to show up, like there's something about them that activates us sometimes, because there's something in us that doesn't let us do that. And so finally this year I was like, you know what, if I really want to make this money and I want to go and have this impact, and I really actually want to heal these wounds and become more regulated in my nervous system, and I need to go walk with the women that have already done it versus sitting in my box watching them do it. I think that is my moral of the story.
I love it. It's like, pull a seat up at the table, right?
Yes.
Pull a seat up at the motherfucking table and see what happens. See what sort of wild journey you go on.
The next time I'm crying in my car, it's not going to be like that.
I love that you shared that though, because, I have so many clients who work with me who have had similar type vibe kind of stories. And that is because I was the same person. So I don't know if I've told you this. When I found Melanie and Leah, so my first private coach was coaching with Melanie back in 2018, I think it was 2018, whenever it was, 2018, 2019. Around that era. And so I was introduced to Melanie, and soon after I found her, she had her first $2 million a year or something. And my brain just it just turned into mush and drained out through my feet. I swear to God. Like I was like, how was that even, what? That was the most mind-boggling thing I think I'd probably ever heard in my whole entire life. And it literally blew up every perception I had ever had about business and life and coaching and what a singular person could achieve. And not only that, a singular person could achieve doing their dreams, doing their dream job, right? Like, and it just, pulling up a seat at the table, being in these energies. They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. When I heard that on a podcast back in depression days, I was like, the people I spend the most time with is my 2 kids, which, you know, was extremely stressful for me because they were really fucking young. My husband, who was also depressed and suicidal, and my in-laws, who are borderline, they have a lot of narcissistic tendencies and control. There was a lot of culty, a lot of issues. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? No wonder I am not happy with who I am and where I am in the situations I am in, and the situation I'm stuck in, is because I hadn't chosen yet to pull up a chair into a different table.
And I think that for me, I was so activated and so angry and distraught at myself, because I'm also like, we're getting to an age where it's no more when I have more time, or when I make a certain amount of, like, all the things that we put our future selves on pedestals, and just realizing every year that it ticks by, like, life still goes on. You can put as much shit as you want on a pedestal, like, time is still ticking on. And so I still remember, like, walking into his parents' house, and his mom, like, oh my God, are you okay? Like, trying to console me. And I'm giggling inside, because I'm like, how do I explain to this lady that I'm so upset that I'm still not a millionaire yet, but someone else just hit $1 million in 10 weeks? When, you know, she lived the typical old paradigm of get married, have children, raise said children, like, work, you know, take care of the house. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but now we're privileged to be in a day and age where we can dream bigger. We've got the internet, we've got tools, we've got confidence, we've got mentors we can connect with that help us rise with them. And it wasn't until I started really investing in myself, and like you said, pulling a seat up to the table and saying, you know what, I want to sit here. I might not have anything to say right now, but I want to listen. And really investing in myself, whether that's with Melanie and Lair, whether that's with you, whether that's with other programs and coaches. And like you say, it makes a difference. It makes a difference in my work and your work. And it's a one job that continues to make you a better person, I feel like, because your main role isn't to go to a workshop and learn how to make a new style bouquet. It's like, how do we hold this new level of fear and personal fame? Like, how do we navigate those seas?
And one of the things that always comes through when I have these conversations with people is, we're doing our ancestors a disservice if we don't take the opportunities that they have worked so hard for us to have, the freedom, like as women, or, you know, to simply not just have to have babies and stay at home and be like, we can have our fucking careers. We get to vote. I mean, come on, there's so many things we get to do. Like my grandmother, my 9, because I'm Welsh, my 90 used to sell eggs at the end of the road and hide a certain portion of it so she could buy her children new shoes, because my tidy, my grandfather, wouldn't allow her to spend money. She had no money of her own. And I'm like, I have all of this equity and I am afraid to fucking spend a few $1,000s a month. This was my situation, you know, at the time, a few $1,000s a month on myself. I am doing everyone a disservice, my whole ancestry, even my children. What am I modeling for my own children, you know, by not choosing to do something that I want to do? Like, that was like, I'm privileged enough to have the choice. And if I don't choose to do it, I'm doing the people that have come before me a disservice by not choosing it. That's my personal walk and my personal understanding of my circumstances and my lineage.
I love that you brought that up, and we could totally do a whole different podcast episode on that, because I can say when I started writing this book on how I broke the cycles of poverty, abuse, and trauma, it is generational. I see it in my both mothers, both grandmothers, both great grandmothers. They had to overcome things. Like, you know, my great grandmother had to get remarried because her first husband went to prison and she didn't have a way to take care of herself. So she married someone who refused to take on her children. So she abandoned them in like a motel room and never came back. I mean, it's just, you think about the way that women had to live back then. And it was so that she could have enough money to send some money home to make sure he had a coat over the winter when he went to go live with his grandparents. And it's like, we really, especially as women, like we have an opportunity that we've never had before. And that's to truly step into our boots and to truly fill them versus worrying about how fast can we like run and cross a finish line. Wow. We could be here all day. I have one question left that I love asking, which is, what is a quote or a saying that you find people spout off, but you just think it's complete bullshit.
Knowledge is power. Easy. Knowledge is not power. Integration is power. That's where we get our personal power. That's where we learn how to self-validate. It's integration. There's so many people have, what's that word? Not fantasized, pedestaled. There's a word.
Glamorize?
Yeah, that one. Glamorize like learning and I remember oh my God. I used to be the person back in my, when my kids were young and in my dark days, I'd be the person who would share an inspirational quote online, like the live, laugh, love, or the whatever it was back then. And then one of my uncles on social media shared a post that said like, stop sharing shit that you're not actually embodying, essentially to that effect. And I was like, oh my God. And so I was so triggered. So triggered.
I felt so seen, attacked.
I just want people to be like, yeah, I live in the daisies. But really, it was just, I understood concepts, kind of. I was beginning to understand concepts, but the real power came when I really embodied them and integrated them.
So true. That's the beauty of being a 1-3 in human design. I get to learn everything and then I have to go live it in order to embody it. It's not always fun, but
all of the lessons you have to extract, all of them.
All of them. Well, Angharad, it has been such a pleasure to have you on the show. I know that this has been a really interesting episode for everyone listening because, as you always say, world-class leadership is basically coming into a market and disrupting it and showing a new way of doing things. And I know today that you've really, I'm sure, made a lot of light bulbs go off. So I'm going to include in the show notes where people can find you. As always, Angharad is on Instagram, always doing her thing. Highly recommend if you want to go and check her out. That's a perfect place to connect. And I hope to speak to you again very, very soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye.